Hey folks, Jimmy back with another classic Fight Club. Apparently you guys liked the last one a lot. It didn't get, once again, great views. I'm trying to get it to catch on, but a lot of likes. So hopefully that does something. So I'm going to continue it for a little bit. This one is BJ Penn versus Takanori Gomi, which is an anomaly in the fight world, and in fight history, actually, and I will explain right now why. Let's bring it up.
Let's take a look at the tail of the tape.
BJ Penn, Takanori Gomi, Rumble on the Rock 4. 155 pounds. You see the ages there, 25 and 24. The reason it's such an anomaly in terms of the history of combat sports is these guys were, number 1 and number 2 at the time, maybe number 1 and number 3, and they were fighting outside a major promotion. It's crazy. That just does not happen. So at this point, Takanori Gomi had just lost to Joachim Hellboy Hansen. So you could argue he was number 2. BJ Penn, considered by a lot of people number 1. But this didn't take place in Shuto, Pride, or the UFC, which were the big 3 at the time. Shuto had some fantastic lightweights, Takanori Gomi among them, Joachim Hansen, Vitor Shaolin, incredible 155ers. I already talked about Hayato Sakurai, Anderson Silva fought there. So the idea that this fight for number 1 took place where it did and when it did is crazy. And you'd see sometimes number 1 fighters, when they left the UFC for whatever reason, BJ Penn left because they weren't paying him enough money and they got rid of the 155-pound division. Jens Pulver fought Bang Ludwig, for example. Bang wasn't considered, the number 2 guy in the world. So you saw top guys fight elsewhere sometimes. You generally didn't see number 1 and number 2, which this fight basically was at the time, outside of Pride and UFC and Shuto. So it's a momentous moment. Now, explaining the ecosystem of MMA at this point in time, you could make a really good living main eventing at mid-level promotions. You could go to Rumble on the Rock, you could go to Hook and Shoot, you could go around and make decent money. More than you would climbing the ladder at the UFC, provided you could main event all the time. That's not the case anymore. You really can't make a living outside of UFC, Bellator, and PFL. You just can't make a living. It's very, very tough. Ryzen, maybe. Ryzen doesn't have a lot of shows. So back in these days, you saw good fighters go around to medium-level shows and main event and make good money. The problem was a lot of medium-level shows didn't stay in business very long. Rumble on the Rock isn't around anymore. Super Brawl, which became Icon Sports, is not around anymore. So the ebb and flow was investors would get together with a promoter, throw a ton of money at a show, buy a big name or 2 or 3 or 4, and then you'd never see them again. That's what Affliction did twice. Rumble on the Rock had an 8-man tournament that had Anderson Silva, Yushin Okami, Jake Shields, Frank Trigg, Carlos Condit, and I think Shiruto Verissimo. Like, all names that cost a ton of money. So, anyway, Gomi had just lost the Shuto world title to Joachim Hansen and entered free agency, and apparently Rumble on the Rock made him a good offer for a one-off against BJ Penn. So, this is number 1 and number 2 in the world at the time. Once again, you can make an argument, but they're somewhere in the top 4. So BJ Penn gets a takedown. He's on top. I'll talk more about this later, but BJ Penn really at his best when he's on top. That's where he won the vast majority of his fights when it comes to submission and ground and pound and everything. When his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu worked in concert, God, he was good. That noise, by the way, is Penny eating a bone. So she's a little bit ill, so that noise will just continue as I'm going. But BJ Penn getting the back. He liked, a lot of times, a high ride on the back. You see here Gomi trying to come out the back door, put his butt up and his head down. BJ Penn preferred to soften you up and beat you up a little bit before he went for the rear naked. If you want to get a rear naked choke, you want to be what they call low in the ride, meaning your hips down by your opponent's hips. BJ Penn, his hips are all the way up the mid-level of Gomi's back. Now, you can generate real force on a punch from there because you're kind of leaning out ahead, but it's hard to get the rear naked from there. So BJ Penn has a really high ride because he'd rather do that. He'd rather beat you up a little bit than kind of burn his arms out going for the rear naked when he didn't have to. He softened you up, then he went for it. So that's the reason he's riding very high right now. Takanori Gomi, Fireball Kid, is a real risk taker on the feet, on the ground. Partly how he got his nickname. If you only know Takanori Gomi from his work in the UFC, you're really missing out. He did great work in Pride, great work in Shuto. By the time he went to the UFC, he was just too old, had been through too many fights, and he wasn't at his best. Had some good performances. Tyson Griffin, for example. But he just, he didn't have it anymore. He wasn't as good as he once was. Right here in this fight, he's near his prime. So that's what makes, I think, BJ Penn's performance here so much more impressive. Because this was a Takanori. I think Gomi may have hit his stride really in Pride, but he was amazing at this point. And BJ Penn, as you can see, all over him on the ground. Got a little reckless there, ends up over the top with Gomi on top. Look, I'm going to say this. Some people might get upset, and that's the way it goes. BJ Penn, I think, had a really overrated guard. And what I mean by that is not that his guard isn't good and the flexibility and everything. People just lost it about his flexibility. Oh, my God, his guard. You know how many people he tapped from guard in MMA? 0. Not one. He didn't do that. So I remember one time an interview with Sean Sherrick. He was doing commentary for one of BJ Penn's fights. And they said, what, and he was going to fight BJ Penn. He had been stripped of his title. BJ Penn wins the title. And it was, what are you worried about with most of BJ Penn? He goes, that guard and the flexibility. And completely wrong, in my opinion. And when he fought Sean Sherrick, he kicked Sean Sherrick's ass. Sean didn't even try to take him down. To me, this is where BJ Penn was at his most vulnerable, was on his back with somebody working ground and pound on him. Because he was simply at his best when he was on top of you. That's when he got you. If BJ Penn got on top of you, you were in trouble. His guard, despite his long legs, his mobility, and his flexibility, wasn't as dangerous as his top position. Like Minotauro catches everybody from guard. Shinya Aoki, incredible guard. That's kind of what he does. BJ Penn, I don't put in that class. Here is where BJ Penn was great. When he got on top of you, his balance, his ability to pass, his mount, his stability. And once again, Gomi turns his back. Ends up giving up back mount to BJ Penn. And BJ Penn, crazy control from that position. And he was the kind of guy he liked to beat you up before he would submit you. Now, that move right there, arm over the top, and you kind of pull down on the arm. Gomi likes that move a lot when someone has his back. They'll teach you, you can armbar a guy from there. Yeah, I mean, if they're an idiot or they're a blue belt, you're not going to catch BJ Penn and something like that. But what it does is stretches out the arm, and sometimes you can turn and get out of this position. BJ not falling for it, of course. You're not going to get a black belt world champion in that move. So BJ Penn on top, almost at the end of round one, just kicking Gomi's ass at this point. But what I like about that opening round is it shows what each guy can and can't do, right? And whenever I used to commentate fights and look at the opening round and go, okay, Gomi lost that round completely, but where did he have success? On top. Okay? Where did BJ Penn have success? On top. So it's one of those things where if and that's Genki Sudo in his corner on the right. Outstanding fighter in his own right. Hopefully I'll get some of his fights on this. Love Genki Sudo a lot, but BJ Penn's so good at that. Left hook right to the double leg. His best punch is a left hook. His best takedown is a double leg. When he got them working in concert, he did the same thing to Bang Ludwig. Drop level, easy takedown, boom, and then once they're on top, it's lights out. So, but if you're Gomi's corner, if you're Genki Sudo, you go, look, on top you can get this guy. He's got flexible legs, long legs, extremely flexible, good control. But you're on top, you can do some damage with your ground and pound. It's like some blood from the mouth and it's just a matter of getting in there. Now Takanori Gomi, good wrestler, but everybody hesitated to take BJ Penn down. Everybody did. Even guys who I thought, and Sean Sherrick, for example, who I thought could do it, really didn't. They were really worried about that guard. But this is where Gomi has probably the best chance. Excellent boxer, southpaw, very quick. Problem is he likes to let his hands float really low, which is usually fine, but BJ Penn has such fast hooks. He has very fast power punches. I once asked Kenny Florian when we were working together at Fox, I said, who hit you hardest in your career? And he said, kicks, Jose Aldo, punches, BJ Penn. I heard from a lot of BJ Penn's opponents and sparring partners, he was incredibly heavy-handed. Just naturally, the guy hits super hard, and he really likes that left hook. And the problem is Gomi is good at slipping punches. He's not good at reading that lead left hook of BJ Penn. And the difficulty with letting your hands float is you have to read the hook, and he just can't do it from the position he's in. So I always told guys when I was training them for MMA, look, if you keep your hands up, you don't have to see every punch. Put your hands down, you have to see every punch. Not everybody can do that. Some guys can, if you're Roy Jones or something, but, you know, Anderson Silva, keep your hands up, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Now, to me, I think this is Takanori Gomi doing the smart thing on top. Get on top, stay on top, work inside the guard. And that kind of mythical idea of BJ Penn's guard prevented, I think, superior wrestlers from getting here and doing what they could. And a lot of times, or so far in this fight, Gomi's ended up here in scrambles, meaning he didn't initiate the takedown and ended up here. BJ Penn took him down, and then there was a scramble, and he ended up on top. So, but I think he realizes, hey, on top, I'm going to do better than I am with this guy on top of me.
Just trying to make some space to get up.
But for those who don't know the history of BJ Penn, black belt world champion in 3 years of jiu-jitsu, which is insane, virtually impossible. For context, if you get your blue belt in 3 years, you're doing okay. Purple belt's hard. I got mine in 3 years. But black belt world champion in 3 years is a freak. It's a freak. It's freaky talent. The difficulty was it made him lazy. And I heard from so many of his training partners in this era at this time, the stories about BJ Penn coming in an hour late, smoking everybody, and leaving a half hour early to go to the club. Now, that's Larry Landless is a referee. I thought that was a bullshit stand-up. I really think Takanori Gomi was busy on top. And at first I thought this was a stand-up for the mouthpiece. But no, stand up for inactivity, which I thought that was some home cooking. I thought Takanori Gomi was doing enough on top to keep this one on the ground. But BJ Penn, an underrated boxer. Everybody talks about his jiu-jitsu. That dude hit hard. And he beat a lot of guys up on the feet in his prime. And you got to remember, Takanori Gomi smoked a lot of guys on the feet. His fight with Jens Pulver at Bushido is one of my favorite Pride fights. Outboxes that guy until he knocks him out. That's talent. I mean, Gomi was a really excellent striker in his prime. And BJ Penn right now just outpunching him, outboxing him. Gomi can't see the punches coming. They're almost all power shots. BJ was not a great jabber. He preferred the lead hook. And look at that. Lead hook over the top again. Always with the left.
Both fight exchange jabs, BJ's Penn left hook.
This fight, by the way, in Hawaii, so the crowd is very pro BJ Penn. Hawaii had a great fight scene back in the day. Super Brawl, which ended up becoming Icon, Rumble on the Rock. But the ecosystem of MMA changed. And so it became the big boys at the top and the feeder systems at the bottom, and that's it. These medium-level shows, like Rumble on the Rock, like Icon, just went away. Cost too much money to get real talent, and they didn't make enough money in return. But Rumble on the Rock was a cool promotion while it lasted. Trying to go back to the jab. The problem is every time you jab BJ, you have to be ready for the power shot in return because, as I said, BJ Penn doesn't jab that much. So it's never worth trading a jab for a power punch. You got a jab move or 1-2 your shot. If you're just throwing jabs, BJ will counter that like he is now with the power shot over the top. You can't trade a jab for a hook. You're going to lose that every single time. Hip toss attempt. Gomi ends up on top.
Gomi's doing a good job of keeping his head up to avoid those knees as well.
Now this time, I like that. BJ Penn not trying to go work his guard. It's get space, get back to the feet, where he's having a lot of success against Gomi. Gomi looks tired. Part of getting tired is getting beaten up. People don't realize if you're winning, I think he just glanced up at the clock. If you're winning, you tend to have a lot more energy. When you're getting the piss kicked out of you, not only is it physically difficult, it's mentally difficult. So a guy can have a big gas tank and get beat up, and suddenly that gas tank starts going down. Excellent takedown by BJ. Not enough time to use it, though. End of round 2. Another round clearly for BJ Penn. I do not remember the scoring system at this point. There's probably boxing scoring like we have now, but I don't remember. I couldn't tell you if it was for sure
BJ got great position.
10-point must system.
During that round, Gomi came on strong. Looked like he got his second win during that round.
Yeah, Genki Sudo looks tired. I'm sorry. Genki Sudo's his coach. Takanori Gomi looks tired. Here's why. As he keeps getting cuffed by those power shots. Rights and lefts, incredibly heavy-handed. BJ Penn at his best. His run, a lot of people got upset that I called him currently the greatest lightweight of all time right now. Khabib is 2 or 1. I think one more defense, and I put Khabib number 1. People remember the BJ Penn of now. They remember the guy who's on the longest losing streak in UFC history. God, BJ in his prime was scary. So talented, like crazy, ridiculously, stupidly, unfairly talented. But what he could do to guys was amazing. Round 3. All rounds so far to BJ Penn. There's some problem in the corner with, looks like an end swell. Don't want to drop that thing. BJ Penn tired as well. But it's can Gomi basically find that power shot on the feet or somehow get this fight to the ground. And I would be surprised. I was surprised at this point in the fight, considering the relative success he had with his ground and pound, that he didn't initiate a takedown. You know, little clinches like this, but no real commitment to the takedown when he was a decent wrestler, Takanori Gomi. With BJ Penn, easy single leg. Right down, you're not going to get BJ Penn in a guillotine. No way. See, he's going hard for it, but nah, not going to happen. And look at that. I love that balance. He goes up and goes straight back down again. No angle on the hips from Gomi, meaning he can't push BJ Penn to either side. He tries to sweep it, and BJ Penn just comes right down on top of him. Now he's in deep trouble. Hooks her in, and this time you could tell, yeah, BJ's a little high right now. But at this point in the fight, I think he's thinking rear naked choke more than he's thinking ground and pound. Simply because he softened Gomi up well, but he hasn't committed a lot to the rear naked. So he could be thinking, maybe I can submit this guy and get him out of here. Nice body triangle, long legs. That is horrible to escape. Takes all the energy out of you. You can't breathe. And that ability Gomi had in rounds 1 and 2 to kind of get the arm to the other side and kind of scramble out, it's not there anymore. And it's hard to flatten. The downside of the body triangle is hard to flatten a guy out with that. But BJ staying tight, thinking rear naked, but still committing to his punches.
There goes the mouthpiece.
Here's the elbow.
This is exactly where you don't want to be. You're exhausted, you're tired, you're sweaty, and BJ Penn, black belt world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, has your back and is beating the living dog piss out of you. It wouldn't surprise me if Larry Landless is thinking about the stoppage here, because Gomi ain't going anywhere. Leaking blood now. This is where you start smelling. This might be the end. This guy might be done.
BJ just dominating right here.
Now BJ's got him flattened out a little better. Oh, got it. Underneath the chin. That's it. Sayonara. Tap, and it's over. BJ Penn over Takanori Gomi by dominance. He almost hit the ring announcer. I forgot that. Oh my God, it's hilarious. Apparently his team likes tackling him a lot. But dominance from start to finish. Absolute dominance for a young, prime BJ Penn. Forget the BJ Penn you see now, guys. And go back and look at some prime BJ Penn. Really, it's fun to watch. It really is. I'll see if I can do some of his other Rumble on the Rock stuff. He fought Rodrigo Gracie, Renzo Gracie. But this performance was amazing, considering how good Takanori Gomi was at the time. Anyway, thank you so much. Classic Fight Club. Again, first rule of Fight Club, please talk about Fight Club. Second rule of Fight Club, please talk about Fight Club. All right? See you guys again soon. Talk to you later.